Welcome back to Game Crunch, everyone, keeping you up to date with the latest in the video game world. Now today, we're going to go over a little article here that I found over on IGN, who did a recent interview with Nintendo of America, and they're trying to justify some of this pricing on as far as the game and the console goes. So we're going to dive into that here in just a second. Of course, if it's your first time here, hit that subscribe, hit that like button. So let's get into what Nintendo has to say about why the console and the games are so expensive. So, first thing here is IGN is basically saying congratulations, so I wanted to point this out. I highlighted some parts of the article here just to, highlight some of the key stuff, but basically I thought this was funny because they are, basically what he's saying here is, well, I'm just excited to be able to get all the details out there. For us, the most important thing is that we really want people to recognize and understand that a Nintendo Switch 2 is the true successor to the Nintendo Switch. So, if you remember the Wii situation where people weren't sure if that was just an add-on or if it was a brand new console. Everyone was very confused. Nintendo this time really wants to not repeat that same mistake and make sure that you know that the Nintendo Switch 2 is a brand new console. So let's just get into what Nintendo has to say here. So as far as game chat goes, I thought this was an interesting part of the interview. So he says, so his name's Bill Trinen from Nintendo of America. He says, well, I would say we've always looked at it from a perspective of what is Nintendo's real strength and what are Nintendo's real values. And for us, the most important thing is we're putting smiles on people's faces, blah, blah, blah. You know how they always say this crap, like, oh yeah, we're always more concerned about people having a good time, which I do appreciate from Nintendo. I do appreciate that fun is first, but basically he's kind of explaining why voice chat, game chat, hasn't been in previous consoles before. And he goes on to say, and certainly there have been other game systems with chat and things like that up until now, but what we wanted to do was take something that could finally replicate that same room, same couch, multiplayer couch co-op experience and joy, and bring that into an online space. So for this, I mean, we already kind of have Discord. I think that's sort of the general consensus is, we've kind of already had this. There's really no reason why it hasn't been there before. So I thought it was kind of funny here that the way they kind of, try and justify why voice chat hasn't been in there. And I know the general consensus, and this goes for myself as well, is that, I don't really want to look at my friends' ugly mugs while I'm playing games. You know what I mean? Like, I can see why they want to look at me, but on the flip side, I really don't want to look at them. You know what I mean? Like, they're just not as attractive as me. So I'm just fucking around. Anyway, let's continue. So he said, IGN basically goes on to say, cool. And we always knew if you did voice chat, it would be in the most Nintendo way. Yeah, of course. So he's basically saying, yeah, cool. About time, let's go. Anyway, they kind of talk a little bit about Donkey Kong here, which is kind of something I wanted to touch on real quick before they get into the part of the interview here where they start justifying prices. This is actually kind of funny. It made me chuckle. What was your favorite part about working on it, so Donkey Kong, from a localization perspective or anything else? And Bill Trinen goes and says, well, I'll start with a really terrible joke, which is, I like to call this the most groundbreaking game in video game history. Groundbreaking game. Donkey Kong, busting the ground. You got me, Bill. You got me. That was a good one. But they go on here to say a little bit more, which he kind of starts asking about who developed, because we don't know who developed this Donkey Kong game yet. And I'm really curious, because is this the same team that did Mario? Because, as I said before, where's Mario? There should be a 3D Mario by now. Where is it? But he wouldn't really give us much. He just said, IGN goes on to say that, I just felt that the DNA of Super Mario Odyssey and Mr. Yoshiaki Kazumi's team is all over this in many ways. Are they the ones working on this? So he presses them a little bit here to try and get an answer. And Trinen says, it's a very good question. You'll have to stay tuned. We always like to start by showcasing the game and getting people focused on the gameplay, which they do this all the time. And but we'll have some more information to share about the developer in due time. So he basically goes to kind of press him here a little bit back and forth, asking him some other questions to see if maybe he could get something to slip out of there by asking him, who developed Donkey Kong Jungle Beat? Is it those same developer there? Is it this? And whoever the interviewer is at IGN, used some pretty good tactics here. But Bill Trinen, I guess he's pretty sharp. So he goes on. Okay. I had to try. Anyway, let's get on to, I believe this is the pricing that we're going to talk about here. And we're going to look at how they're going to justify this pricing, and as far as the tariffs and everything go, the meat and potatoes, why you're watching this video, besides my ridiculously attractive face. I know this is, reason number 2 why you're here, but, let's get into the meat and potatoes. Reason number 1. Anyway, he basically says, but I think the talk of the town is the price tag, which is what I see all over the internet. Everyone's always talking about the price, especially you guys in the States right now, because things are very up in the air. This is, I gotta say, I'm glad I'm not in the States. It doesn't look like those tariffs are going to affect my console price, which is pretty cool, even though it is very expensive here, but it's not gonna go up even more. So they kind of explain some pretty cool things here as far as, and I learned a few things actually reading this interview that I wasn't sure before. This is an $80 game from Nintendo in the United States. So he's actually talking about Donkey Kong. And a $50 game if, oh, sorry. He's talking about Mario Kart, not Donkey Kong. Sorry. Forgive me. But a $50 game if you buy the Nintendo Switch 2 bundle. Which, as far as that bundle goes, man, I want the game physically, so I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and buy it physically, get the console separately, unfortunately. But I saw somewhere on your website that the bundle is only available for a limited time while supplies last. Can you just talk about the strategy behind the pricing of Mario Kart World? So he basically goes on here to, I kind of didn't highlight this because he kind of just fluffs up the game. But he uses some words here like the game is so big and vast and it's probably the richest Mario Kart experience that they've ever had. And these are kind of words that he's used to kind of fluff up the game, to kind of give it that grandeur, that feeling of luxury, to kind of fluff it up to, this is why it's so much money, because it's just the biggest game ever. It's the richest game ever. No Mario Kart, no, he's going on the whole Donald Trump, this is the greatest game ever made. Everybody knows this is the greatest game. This is the biggest game. Everybody knows. Everybody's jealous of our racing game. And he kind of just fluffs it up here. Doesn't say a whole lot, but IGN pressed some pretty good here. They say, okay, and just to stay on the pricing for a little bit here, because it sounds like Bill Trinnan's trying to, shy away from that a little bit, which understandably. It's not Bill Trinan that's setting the price here. He's just kind of got to explain it. So just staying on the pricing for a little bit here. I'm looking at the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of the games, and some games are $70 and some games are $80. Now, this actually clears up quite a bit for me, and this is some good information. I was actually very happy to read this. That's what it's looking like right now, and some are cheaper than that too. I don't think we know the US price for Welcome Tour yet, but I think we saw the Japanese price around $10. So he actually confirms, so that Welcome Tour game is only $10. So the US price is only going to be $10, probably be 15 or so here in Canada. Which he kind of gets into why it's not really a pack-in here in a second, which, again, his reasoning, we'll get into that here in a second as we go down, but his reasoning just doesn't really match. You know what I mean? It should have just been a pack-in game, especially if they're only going to charge $10 for it. Just throw it in there. PlayStation threw in, Astrobot, which is basically like a full game, way bigger than freaking this thing. Anyway, so we got confirmation. Welcome Tour is only $10. So IGN says, I'm just wondering the strategy behind pricing these Nintendo Switch 2 editions at the combination of the Switch 1 retail price. So usually $59.99, and then whatever the upgrade path is, like $10 for Breath of the Wild, making that a $70 game, or Tears of the Kingdom is an $80 game because it was $70 with the upgrade path of $10. Can you just walk me through the strategy behind not offering any sort of discount for newcomers on Switch 2 and saying Tears of the Kingdom is now $80 just like Mario Kart is? So Bill Trinan goes on here to counter. He goes, what I would probably counter to some of that is what I would probably counter to some of that is that really what you're looking at is for the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, that's just the physical price for somebody who's not bought the base game. So this kind of does clear up a little bit for me here. So if you're buying Breath of the Wild brand new Nintendo Switch 2, $70 American, as opposed to the $60 that it would be on the Switch 1. That's basically how it's going. So it is $10 more. Now, this is really interesting. For somebody who bought Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, the upgrade packs are $10. So this is kind of what I gathered. I know there was some confusion on that online, but this is really, this kind of clears it up for me. That now, for those games, it's only going to cost me $10 to upgrade them, which is sweet. But there's a little bit more information here. I might not even have to spend $10 on them. And if you happen to be a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack member, both of the Zelda upgrade packs are inclusive with that membership. So I am a Nintendo Switch Online and expansion pack member. So this means that I actually don't have to spend a dime on my upgrades for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So that's actually wicked. I'm actually so happy to read that because, I mean, it's only $10. Probably 15 here in Canada, but, you know, $30 for the two games, you know, and if I gotta upgrade some other games that maybe I'm interested in playing over time, if they're just including that with the Nintendo Switch Online, that's pretty decent value, I've got to say. But IGN continues here. They say, okay, thanks. And then the pricing for the console itself too. So here we go. A lot of people are talking about it. $450 in the United States, and we know there are definitely some global economic factors at play. Can you share anything behind the strategy for the price of the console? Was this something that came up to the wire? I mean, you didn't know what was going on until recently. So Trinan kind of sheds some light on it here. And he says, can't really share insight into any of that. So when I say some, I mean basically no light on it. Obviously, the cost of everything goes up over time, so we all know that with inflation. And I would personally love if the cost of things would go down over time, or didn't go up over time, which not in this capitalist, you know, societies that we live in. That's just going to keep going up. But I think anytime you're building a new system that's got new features, new tech, there's always a cost associated with that, which is fair. Maybe we'll see the console go down over time, but the way things are going, you know, we used to see over time, you know, like the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One and PS3, PS2, how they all kind of, you know, over time, as the parts got cheaper and the chips got cheaper, the price of the console went down. And I don't know, the way things are going, that really does seem like a relic of the past. Is this something that maybe as the Nintendo Switch goes on over time, could we be looking at it getting more, could it be more expensive in 5 years than it is today? That's an interesting question to think of. And who knows, maybe when they do have to increase the price, maybe it'll be an OLED model or something, but I hear that LCD screen's wicked anyway, so we'll see. But anyway, he goes on, IGN keeps pressing him here on the pricing. Last question on price, I promise. I played the welcome tour on the show floor and I walked away and thought this is a perfect packing game. So he kind of pressed him on this why isn't it a packing game thing here. Shows what the console is, it shows HDR, it shows these new technologies Nintendo's embracing, and in some cases for the first time it feels like a great showcase for the console. Was there ever any talk of making this a packing game, and why did you make the decision to price it as a separate digital product? Now I gotta say, it probably wasn't Bill Trinan or even Nintendo of America's say on that. They probably just went with whatever Nintendo of Japan had to say about it. If they say it's going to be sold separately, then it's going to be sold separately, regardless of what Nintendo of America thinks. But he does go on to say, I think people will be able to see through the Treehouse Live probably a little bit more than you were able to see on the show floor. It's a pretty robust piece of software. So again, he's trying to describe it as this like big piece of software. That's why they couldn't include it in the cost of the console. I just don't see them really making much revenue off this game anyway. I mean, it's only $10. It's not going to be a million seller. It might sell, you know, a few thousand. No, I'm probably more than a few thousand. It might sell like 100K, 200K, something like that. Might even be less than 1-2 Switch, which I had to look up the numbers for that, but did it ever crack a million eventually? So man, I'd be hard pressed to say that it would get half of that. But anyway, he goes on to say, I think there are people who are particularly interested in the tech and the specs of the system and things like that. For them, it's going to be a great product. I don't know. I don't even think people that are that interested in the tech and the specs of the product are going to be that interested in it. Like, to be honest, I mean, for that, we will watch a YouTube channel like Digital Foundry or something like that really goes hard into details, or another channel that might disassemble it like SpawnWave, and you know, really kind of take a look at the board and take a look at the chip and look at how it all comes together. I think that, you know, the tech guys really want to see it actually taken apart or actually scrutinized, and not so much in the game form. So again, I don't see why this can't just be a pack-in. Especially when you're pricing it at $10. Just throw it in there. But he says, yes, feels like $9.99 is not an exorbitant price. It feels like good value for what you're getting out of the product, which I feel like, you know, you turn it on, mess around with it for an hour, I guess. $10, is that worth it to you? Anyway, from here they kind of go into the Joy-Con, so if you're interested in reading more on this article, definitely go check it out on the IGN website. There was just one little last tidbit here that I thought was kind of funny. So the IGN team, my social team really wants to know, we don't have Switch 2 cartridges here. Do they taste like the Switch 1 cartridges? So if you don't know, Nintendo has a special coating. You can try this yourself. You can go get your Switch 1 games and give it a little lick. And just, you know, see how that tastes. But anyway, they coat it with this stuff that is basically meant to taste extremely bad. So that way, because it's just a little cartridge, so that way little kids don't put it in their mouth and swallow the cartridges. But Trinan laughs about it, and he said he has not done a taste test, but he's hoping for a pistachio flavor. I feel like that would do the opposite. If it tastes good, kids might actually eat it. Probably not a good idea to make the cartridge taste good, but I always thought that was kind of funny because I remember when the Switch originally came out, this was actually a big topic that went around. People were like, why does my Switch cartridge taste so bad? And that was the reasoning. I mean, it makes sense here at the end of the day. Anyway, so we got a little bit of clarification here, a little bit, just a tiny bit of clarification on the justification on why these games cost so much money, why the console is costing so much money. We got, you know, kind of beating around the bush, but feels like the tariff situation, Nintendo's just kind of up in the air. It does seem like it's a pretty decently powerful piece of hardware, so I feel like, I don't know, to me it seems like it's pretty fairly priced. I know a lot of you guys probably won't agree with me, but I also like to look at things and like, how many, literally thousands, I was gonna say hundreds, but literally thousands of hours of gameplay and enjoyment have I got out of my Switch 1, and I expect that I'm going to be playing my Switch 2 for literally thousands of hours. And for, you know, if I gotta spend a grand on it here in Canada to get my, you know, controllers, my console, my first couple games, and over the course of the lifespan, I end up, you know, spending a few $1,000s on it with my game collection that I inevitably build up for it and whatnot. For that many hours of entertainment, there's not much else that you can get that many hours of entertainment out of that much money. You know, if I spent 3,000 hours on my Switch, which I'm sure my original Switch, I probably spent that many hours on it, and I probably spent about $3,000 on it for the console and everything, games over time. Basically, it's like $1 an hour. Where else are you going to get entertainment for that sort of value? Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are down below. And of course, I'll remind you again, if it's your first time here, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one.